Um, Omnichannel Moat. I think this is something we're really excited to get into over the summer, because the brands that we see that do really well in Q4 prepare now. And that's, for those of you who come from more traditional retail, I mean, this is par for the course. Like, I think if you work at the Gap or J. Crew or some of these bigger companies, your Black Friday might even be locked in by now. So I think we'd like to dive into that and really get into it. We've got a great agenda today, and we've got a lot of good partners. We're excited to talk about how everybody's sort of preparing now and doing the tests now that will allow them to have a lot more confidence when they go into Q4. Quick background for me. My name is Drew Sanocki. I'm one of the co-founders and CEOs of PostPilot, which is a direct mail platform for e-commerce. And my background is that I've been in e-commerce probably longer than anyone on the call. I think since I started my first store in '99, built it myself on Dreamweaver. It's a furniture store. We competed with DWR. Competed unsuccessfully because there's still a DWR. My furniture store is still there. It got sold, but sold that, went on to run a couple big brands, an automotive aftermarket brand, Karmaloop in Boston, which was a streetwear apparel brand. It's how I met the Klaviyo founders, because one day I basically went across the hall and said, we're running this legacy email software. I need to be on Klaviyo. And, there's probably 10 people at Klaviyo then. They helped us get over. And, along the way, I started PostPilot because I felt like direct mail was a underserved channel for D2C. Everybody was sort of focused on Meta and AdWords, and it was the missing piece. And so that was probably 4 or 5 years ago. That's my background. I'm in San Diego now. Gina, what about you?
Yeah, so I'm at Klaviyo, and as we were saying, based out of Boston, where our headquarters still is. And I am on our partner strategy team. And actually what I focus on is, as we keep rolling out more and more products and, think of and really see Klaviyo evolve as a CRM from, way back when we were an ESP, really thinking about what does success look like for our products and how we can really drive results across the entirety of the CRM for our brands, for our partners, both tech, agency, really that holistic vision. So really, I spend a lot of my time thinking about how Klaviyo can help all you wonderful folks make more money.
Awesome. For each section, we're going to have a quick intro and sort of set the context, introduce the brand partners. They're going to run through their approaches, and we'll follow each one with the thesis. Right now, we're going to go into basically your whole funnel: acquisition, retargeting, retention, have an agency roundtable at the end, and then the closer. I think to start with the teaser, I mean, we see everybody's heard of AI, right? We have this thing going on. At least at PostPilot, we've got this thesis that digital marketing is sort of fast approaching commoditization. We call it the flattening, but AI is going to be able to generate a zillion different creatives, a zillion different email flows, ad campaigns. And I think in that environment, where you're competing against other brands that can do the same thing, you really need to prepare ahead of time to differentiate. And we think direct mail should be a big part of that, but there's a lot of other things you can do too in just getting ahead and sort of differentiating yourself going into Q4. So with that, I think we are going to move into, let's see. I covered this. We're flattening, same meta variants. Brands are going to hit November. Pray the algorithm works. We're going to go into acquisition. Let me introduce these speakers to you. We've got Ren Fuller Wasserman from Tushy, Kara Jacobson from Health-Ade, and Lex Kilroy from Brij. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves and just give a quick line on who you are?
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Ren. I'm the VP of Customer Experience at Tushy. We're a modern bidet brand aiming to revolutionize and modernize the North American bathroom experience and teach people how to wash with water.
And hi, I'm Kara Jacobson. I'm the Associate Director of E-commerce at Health-Ade. Health-Ade Kombucha. We're recently acquired, so now we're part of the bigger Generous Brands, which is all about better for you beverages. I've been with Health-Ade for about 4 years now, and I just focus on, my background has been focused on D2C, and off to you, Lex.
Hey guys, I'm Lex Kilroy. I'm the head of marketing at Brij. If you're unfamiliar with Brij, we help omnichannel brands identify retail and online marketplace buyers and then pass that data to their ad platforms and lifecycle stack so they can lower CAC and drive LTV. But my background is actually a little bit before this. I was in the e-com tech space, but before that, I was in growth marketing and advertising in-house at brands myself. So I've got kind of both sides of the game.
Awesome. Well, thanks. And the first panel is on acquisition. I've got Gina. Do you want to give us an intro to acquisition?
Of course, I'd love to. What I would say is that we really, first of all, I couldn't agree more with you. Commoditization, actually thinking about, we're maybe in the phase of the AI hype where it feels like if we're not really careful, we're going to converge to all saying the same thing. And we're actually really, I don't know if everyone else is feeling this as well, that it used to be that like Instagram ads were eerie, right? In terms of how much they would target you with these things of like, how did you know that I didn't know this thing existed and it did the best discovery for you, right? And that, it's at least in my personal experience, what we're seeing is because the walled gardens continue really pressing on making money. I guess we can't blame them for that, right? We're all part of a capitalist society, but we're seeing that really take the priority versus that differentiation. You're really seeing just that reward for spend on how you're showing up, not that almost eerie alignment of like, holy cow, this is a small brand I never would have seen. Or I see a lot of ads from the big brands. And particularly, along with PostPilot and Klaviyo, what we really think about is actually the customer relationships, right? And the fact that hopefully what AI will drive to is the fact that you have a sense of, hey, we're actually targeting Gina and we know how to speak to her and are able to do that personalization at scale. And so much of that actually starts with zero and first party data at acquisition and being able to get that sense of how we actually go from cold prospecting, never heard of you, to driving that first purchase from customers and really how we think about acquisition within it. So to kick things off, I'll hand the mic to Ren from Tushy, and then we can follow like in order and go through a discussion, and then panel, feel free to ask any questions, and throughout in the chat and of each other, we make sure that, part of the conversation is what we want.
Oh, thank you, Gina. Do we want to move to the next slide, I think? Yeah. So thinking about how to pull your customers into the Tushyverse. I've been with Tushy about 6.5 years, and Tushy is around 11 years old and started as a D2C brand. But what happens when you get out into the world and you move towards omnichannel distribution, right? You go from the space of having a complete lock on your customers and knowing everything about them and them being fully pulled into all the things of the Tushyverse, as I call it. And then you're on a shelf in Walmart and all of a sudden that whole experience is gone, right? And so if you're starting from scratch, the first thing that you really want to think about is how can you pull them into that experience? So for us, that's where Brij was really clutch. And that entails making sure QR codes are on all of your products. And for us as a hardware company, you know, we only have 12 major SKUs, right? We're not an apparel brand or a makeup brand that we're releasing things all the time. So something like putting a QR code on a package sounds like an easy feat, but you know, we might only be printing these packages once a year, right? And so this is going to be your first major task if you're in a position like myself at a hardware company. How do you get that on the package? And so for us, that means every product has a QR code, every installation manual has a QR code, and those are printed in the packaging. There's other ways to accomplish this. You can do it faster. Put a sticker on the box, right? Like that's an easy way. So this for us was a really heavy lift of understanding how to put it on all of our products. What does that look like? But now it's something that's baked into the experience. Every time we launch a product, this is innate, and we consider this web app experience that you access through the QR codes part of the product. And so once you have that on everything, there's a million things that you can do with it. Principally, pulling your customers in to the Tushyverse. And so how do you do that? So once it's on everything, let's think about what is a good call to action. There's QR codes on everything, right? Scan for code, like that is not appealing at all, right? What do you want them to do? Is it register their limited warranty? Is it sign up for fun sweepstakes and, you know, content? For us, we have like defecation meditation, ASMR stuff, you know, we have really cool ways to get ahead of the customer when we know we launch something that's confusing, right? We used to always have a bidet attachment and that wouldn't fit underneath the seat. Last year, we moved into full seats. There's huge confusion around elongated versus round. And so people would order the wrong thing. But the really cool thing is because these menus are all dynamic, we can bake into this web app experience, got the wrong seat shape, and educate them. Tushy is really huge on education. So we can bake education in at every step of this journey so that we can get in front of them from a CX perspective so that they don't need to reach out to us or even go to a help center. We can tell them exactly what they need, offer it to them at a discounted rate, and really enhance that experience. So thinking about activating warranty, product discovery, what did they purchase? Maybe they got to you from a landing page and they thought you only made this one thing and they're buying toilet paper from another company because they have no idea that we make really great bamboo toilet paper. You can put that into this menu of discovery and all of the other things that you want them to do. It might be discovering other brands if you have collaborations. Like that's the really cool thing about all of these menus that you can build with Brij. And then as you get further down, what else do you want to drive? Loyalty, social media engagement, sales coming from BFCM. And all of this is linked, of course, into Klaviyo segmentation. So when they sign up via Brij for their limited warranty, they're put into a funnel that can be, you know, low lift. You can just put them into your welcome funnel because they know nothing about your brand if they discovered you on a Target shelf. But it could also be highly segmented, specific to the product that they bought. And, you know, depending how big your team is, you can really drive them towards a lot of discovery and delight in a way that they never have to touch your team or go to your store or go to your website, but it's all literally sitting on your product. So we've had a ton of fun with this, and over the years of using Brij, seen it evolve, and now it's getting to levels that, you know, my marketing team is having a ton of fun. So you can think about it as a basic web app or to drive tons of other features across the funnel and for years to come, as far as increasing AOV, increasing LTV, and all of the fun metrics we want to drive. So I'll leave it at that and pass it to Kara.
Awesome, Ren. I love that you're a QR code nerd too, because I am, and I'm known at Health-Ade as, yeah, everyone's like, oh, did you see this QR code? So love that. Yeah, I'm a huge fan. So anyways, going into what we're doing at Health-Ade, you know, obviously BFCM Q4 is going to be a big moment, but the goal at Health-Ade is just building a more sustainable business year round. So we want to acquire the right customers and create the stronger path from first purchase to subscription, because we have a really strong subscription program. And so this summer, on the acquisition side of things, we're going to be building our owned audience, learning what converts, and then improving that journey from discovery to first purchase. And we are also using Brij. We're partnering with a regional brand on our sweepstakes. So we leverage Brij for our sweepstakes. We've actually partnered with Brij for almost 3 years now, primarily using that platform with our QR codes. We also do have use QR codes individual on every flavor, every format, and have baked in those like educational moments in there. But with the sweepstakes, it's really helped us streamline sweepstakes with using Brij, and then also driving some of our highest volume and highest quality signups. The goal of this sweepstakes that we're launching in July is to capture net new audiences, especially through our partners' social and email channels, but then also giving our existing audience something valuable to engage with. And we'll support the sweepstakes through our own channels, so email, SMS, social. We'll also have paid boosts there. And then we'll route those net new entrants into a dedicated Klaviyo welcome flow that we can test different messages and offers. And at the same time, we're also updating our core acquisition flow. So welcome, browse, cart, abandonment. So we just have a stronger foundation heading into Q4. And one specific change, we're better servicing our Digioh flavor quiz. It has performed just really well for us. So we want to give it stronger visibility in our welcome flow and then use it as that product discovery tool for our new customers. And then from there, we're just going to shift that focus into the testing and learning. So we're going to analyze, those flows, those messaging to see really what converts, focusing on looking at those lead source, the message, and the offer. With the lead source, we just want to understand like whether that partner email, partner social, organic social, paid boost drive the most engaged leads. And then on messaging, we just want to test which product education, flavor discovery, or offer messaging just gets people closer to purchase. And then on the offer, we want to learn what converts without defaulting to the deepest possible discount to save those margins. And then from there, we're just going to take all of those learnings and then apply them to our biggest national sweepstakes. It's just a larger opportunity to acquire those net new customers heading into Q4. So by then we'll have a stronger understanding on, those messages and offers and flow paths that are just the most effective. So by the time we get to Q4 BFCM, we'll just have a larger owned audience. But most importantly, we'll know more about that audience, where they came from, what they engaged with, what flavors or products they showed interest in, whether they purchased online, in store, both, if they prefer bottles, cans, and then what type of offer or message moved them. That's just going to help us be more intentional, especially as we move away from more of like a blanket site-wide discounting for BFCM towards a more strategic offers. So yeah, that's how we're looking at it. And I will pass on to, who's next? Lex?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hard to follow those two beautiful acts. That was awesome. Thank you guys for the kind words and also really digging deep into your strategy. I think we all know the value of first-party data. That's why we're all here. And I think we all know the feeling of the race to the bottom. CAC is already really high when it comes to our paid acquisition right now. And then once the supply and demand of the ad system gets crazier and crazier as we go further into Black Friday, that race to the bottom of this like crazy discounting really happens. And so I think where brands will really see the competitive advantage this year is not in testing promotions now and hoping that they work down the line by the time that Black Friday rolls around, but instead to be gathering as much first-party data as you can on as many buyers as you can, not just the ones that you own in your D2C segment. And then using that data to power your systems through Black Friday to deliver really personalized, really targeted, and really efficient marketing. And I think that's where you're going to see the major wins and the major gains. So my crawl, walk, run kind of strategy here would be to spend from basically today all the way through up until Black Friday, Do everything you can to capture first-party data from your retail and online marketplace buyers. You know your buyers best, so you know which incentives that they will respond to best, but it might be a promotional offer, it might be gated content if you don't like to discount. You know, we work with Momofuku, for example, and they have really, really, really high first-party data capture rates, and they're not even offering any sort of like cash discount, offering gated recipe books. So you have opportunities there. You know your buyers, you know which incentives will work. But capture as much retail buyer data as you can as soon as you can. And then as you move throughout the summer and into September, you want to, as you're continuing to collect that data, you want to start sending that offline buyer data to your two kind of core parts of your stack that fuel growth during Black Friday, Cyber Monday. The first one is going to be your ad platform. So a lot of brands aren't even aware that Meta offers an offline conversion solution where you can send offline buyer data to Meta and help improve your audience optimization and targeting, and also your attribution along the way. And so sending that offline buyer data to your ad platforms for that optimization so that the platforms understand, oh, these people are buying. I just didn't realize it because it didn't happen on .com, but now I know. So now I'm going to keep sending, to these buyers that do actually convert offline. And then you can also start building smart segments, in Klaviyo, for example, for your Black Friday campaigns. And when you are capturing this really detailed data using things like rebates or, requiring customers to upload screenshots of receipts, then you have a really smart and granular segmentation opportunity. Someone bought your moisturizer, but on their Target receipt, you have the data that they bought someone else's lip balm. Well, you should definitely send them a targeted lip balm bundle offer for Black Friday, right? So you have all of that data to really build granular segmentation around. And then your September is scaling. So now you've built this really strong first party data foundation. You're going to go ahead and run and scale. And now you can really test meaningful promotions, continue to scale up, how you're thinking about your lifecycle campaigns. Once you're seeing those higher conversion rates from having that offline data juicing your kind of whole growth system. That's all I got.
I think I'm up next. It's such a good point, and I love that, it feels like it's been maybe 5 years since, and everyone now gets tummy rumbles because we all went through the phase of really over discounting. And now it's actually about, particularly after last year's macroeconomic spice, really making sure that we all have control over our margins. What we're really thinking about and what we're seeing actually is, from a Klaviyo perspective, getting started is also thinking about how are you surfacing the ability for folks to actually convert and go from, that like 90+% of traffic is anonymous. How do you actually offer something on site that incentivizes that switch and actually entirely as a surface, right? For that, hey, you sign up for the loyalty program, but how are you, right, showing that not just necessarily in forms, but actually making that account experience also someplace that they can save favorites. So possible with Customer Hub for August, really thinking about how are you actually A/B testing, right? We know that A/B testing should not be happening come October, November. Really want to make sure that you're actually getting that testing out now or in August, or we can start now as well. That can be both acquisition flows, but then also things like common FAQs, right? Very likely, if you guys circle back with, we're thinking a lot about this at Klaviyo, really the connection between marketing and service, how it's all part of that same relationship. And actually, most likely, the most common chats in that your CX folks are getting are also the reasons that are leading to abandoned carts. We can make sure that we're actually being proactive about making sure those responses can get, or that you can have AI responding in a way that feels really conversational to those FAQs that might be the blockers to that first purchase or to signing up and learning more, particularly for high research, right? Tushy is a good example. Or if you need to do Health-Ade and like worried about ingredients, right? Making sure you're actually doing that education without having to have a human involved. And then come September, everyone has said this, it's really about who are you speaking to and making sure that you've done the analysis of all of that testing, those different channels, what's leading to that acquisition, making sure you're really turbocharging it once you've done the analysis of what is and isn't working. That, I think we've got Drew up next.
Yeah, I'm going to bring us home on acquisition. I'm going to tell a story. I think a lot of the brands I ran were not, they weren't as cool as the brands you guys are all running. I think they were sort of big busted brands. That was my experience. One was Karmaloop. Think of it as like, it was 100 million in revenue, losing 10. I bought it out of bankruptcy. And the first Black Friday, I remember we dialed in our ad programs, and we had probably more revenue than we ever had before over that period. And then the CFO, I remember coming into my office like the first week of December or something. Is like, good news and bad news. The good news is we got more revenue than ever before. Bad news is we didn't make any money. And a big reason, when partially discounts, which everybody's talked about, we probably over discounted. The other reason was like, we're just playing in these dynamic ad environments. And all of a sudden, those week or two before Black Friday, we're competing against all the Nike, the big names in streetwear just all of a sudden rolled in, and our CACs went through the roof. And the same thing, I saw the same thing happen at Auto Anything. When Walmart, AutoZone, they all roll in. It was a big reason why I wanted to experiment with direct mail over that period, because you think about it, it's not a dynamic ad environment. Like, the cost of postage is the cost of postage. In theory, if you can acquire a customer for $20 today, that's going to be the same as on Black Friday or the week before. So that's like the promise of the channel. I think I've been validated. You see the last few years, these big brands, Amazon launched a catalog over Black Friday, and Nordstrom's and J. Crew brought theirs back. And these guys, they're not idiots, right? They're doing it for a reason. Number one, because you can really predict, if you get it dialed down, you can predict the cost of acquisition through that period. And then number two is like, you find that the customers that receive a piece of, like, in real life, real collateral are higher lifetime value. They'll have higher AOVs, right? So those were the big reasons. We launched it took us a while to figure it out. Our product is called AcquisitionAI. And what we did was I wanted to build an ad platform on top of the Postal Service. So think of it as like a graph of every household in the US. And then you layer on top of that purchase behavior and demographic qualities of every household. So we know that, this household buys a lot of D2C and they buy a lot of home goods. This other household buys, a lot of men's grooming products, whatever. So that's essentially think of that as like AcquisitionAI. The brand will upload their existing customer data. We do what Meta does, which is build a lookalike off that. But in the way we've broken it down here, crawl, walk, run, July, August, September, like, I think the mistake a lot of brands make is they come to us maybe, November 1st, and they're like, all right, we're excited to do our Black Friday catalog. And unlike, email or any other channel, like, it's often hard to turn that around and get a win, because there's more that goes into producing direct mail. And then you've got to add in the natural delays it takes for mail to go from our print center to a house. So July is a great time to start, and if you were to sign up for AcquisitionAI, what we would do for you now is sort of that foundational work where we do a couple of different lookalike models. We'll say, here's model A, model B, and model C for your brand. Maybe we do one send, a drop of a postcard to each one, and then you're going to see incrementality, or it's essentially all incremental because it should be scrubbed for your existing customers, but you're going to see a difference in the three models, and then using that intelligence, that's your July program. You can roll it into August, and that's where you start automating it. You're like, okay, so model B worked really well. Let's continue to learn off model B. Maybe we're going to automate that in. And this is where it becomes very similar to Meta. It's like, we're going to set a target, and then as long as we're hitting the target, we're going to be printing and sending your campaign, your acquisition campaign, to that audience. And that's a nice thing to sort of ride through August. And now you're in a position where essentially what acquisition is going to drive at what ROI, and you can scale it up through the end of the year. The wrinkle might be September. Maybe you want to do some creative things like drive to a couple of the brand. I'm sure, Health-Ade, for example, like you want to drive to store to purchase. Maybe you want to layer that on and do the same lookalike model, but around a Whole Foods or around a Sprouts or something. So you can see the result there. A lot of you sell through Amazon. So we've got an integration with Amazon. So you can see the ROI when certain people will get your print collateral and then go to Amazon to buy. You're not able to track it through your Shopify store. So that's something we typically add on in September. But really, that's sort of what the July, August, September works like. If you put the work in now over the summer, ideally, you're going to be a hero over Black Friday because you'll have predictable ROI at a cost that doesn't increase throughout the month, which is a great way to sort of end the year and to build on into next year. So I think that's how you should think about direct mail for acquisition. We've got 2 questions in the QA section. I have an Amazon seller account and I need help getting conversions on my product. I just mentioned that like our product plugs into Amazon, so it's called Amazon Halo. We get Amazon, you can measure the Amazon conversions and the lift through your seller account. We noticed early on that a lot of people who receive our collateral, and I'm sure it's the same in any marketing channel, go on to spend a certain percent off Shopify. And until now, it's been really hard to measure that. So we built an integration. But I don't know, any other speakers have any comments about selling on Amazon?
Well, I think for us, not thinking about selling particularly, but the main problem with Amazon is you're totally cut off from your customers. And so baking in certain experiences like QR codes with Brij helps to bridge that gap, no pun intended, and allows them to receive the information that you would like them to receive, but you're fully cut off digitally from allowing those things. So for Tushy, that's things like installation videos, intense guidance on, how to use the product and all of these things that we want them to have access to. So they have an incredible product experience, but unfortunately, when they order on Amazon, don't get that full digital experience.
Health-Ade, do you sell? You don't sell through Amazon, do you?
We do actually. We sell through the 3PL and 1PL. So I would say look at your PDPs and make sure they're optimized, and because now with AI too, AI is gonna, I forget the name of it now. Is it Alexa? It was Alexa, then it was Rufus. Yeah, now it's back to Alexa. So I would say just focus on like all the imagery, because AI obviously will, or I don't know if you're aware of this, but it does scrape the images as well as all of the content on your PDP. So just really make sure at the minimum that you're sharing all the details that you can to help your product show up best on Amazon. And then obviously you want to use PostPilot to get the direct mail in there. And I will say I'm a huge fan of PostPilot. We use them on more the retention and the retargeting side of things, but I want to check out this new AI, AcquisitionAI. I'm really curious. So you piqued my interest.
All right. I didn't have her say that. Retargeting. Let's go. We'll move down funnel one. So conversion rates online, what are they? 1-2%. Retargeting is all about capturing the 97% who didn't convert. We've got Zach to join. Actually, I should thank the last panelists before they jump off. But now I'd like to welcome Zach and Rishi. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Rishi, go for it.
Cool. Hey, everybody. I'm Rishi. I'm the CEO of Digioh. Very excited to be here with Zach. I'm actually wearing a Criquet shirt. Father's Day is coming up. It's a great gift. And so I'll talk more about that. And yeah, excited to be here. We help with the zero-party data, capturing more data on your site, pop-ups, quizzes, identifying more visitors on your site, and sending them to different platforms. So pretty pumped about this talk and excited for it.
I'm glad Rishi did some of the selling for me. But I'm Zach. I run all of our MarTech here at Criquet Shirts, including the retention side as well for a long time before overseeing all of the MarTech as a whole.
How is your back, Zach?
It's so much better. Thank you for asking. Rishi and Drew both got to see me last year with a cane, needing my second back surgery at 35. So not only is the brand getting ready for Q4, but I'm getting ready for full 100% recovery in Q4. So very exciting.
That's good to hear.
Love to hear that.
Do you still have the cane? Like, I would keep the cane. I would keep.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I kept all the stuff from the first surgery as well, just in case. So, good to haves and not great to need, but always good to haves.
Good to have you at full strength talking about retargeting. So 3 challenges we identified. Cookie loss, obviously, like it's like every other week. One of the browsers or searching, like cookies are going away, right? Like what does a cookieless future look like? Challenge number 2, identity resolution, closes the gap. And challenge number 3, browse and cart flows alone leave most of the revenue on the table. So I don't know. I guess we're going to start with Zach, and maybe you could sort of walk us through how you're addressing those challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I can start with 3, actually. One of the biggest changes recently for us was on those browse and cart abandonment. On the Klaviyo side, the Klaviyo pixel shifted to the Shopify pixel for those events, and we're getting fewer abandonment events from the Shopify metric now, at least on the Criquet side. I know some other brands I've spoken to have felt that same thing. And so because we use Digioh, we're getting those extra events because Digioh is able to identify non-logged in people, and we're able to send more abandonment emails because we're able to identify more customers than the Shopify pixel is. So that's been a big one for us. We implemented that in the last few months and have seen a lot of success from that. The other things that we sort of have coming, building on that, is we want to be less discount focused. I know you guys talked about that on the last panel as well. And one of the ways that we can do that, when someone gets into the abandonment flows, we're offering, I believe it's 10% for an abandoned cart. We can offer a 5% abandonment as a pop-up right on the site if someone is trying to exit, as an exit intent pop-up. So those are the things that we're trying to think through of being able to convert more while someone is on the site. Some of the other stuff that we're working on that doesn't necessarily fit into those, but sort of talk about sort of this period of sort of testing into things and then implementing. One of the things that we have that's sort of different, our customer base is mostly 35 to 55-year-old men, and the people that fall out of that category are usually the partners of those men who are gifters. So about 2 months ago, we added a question to our post-purchase survey of, is any item in this order a gift? We were predicting maybe 10 to 15%. It's been 20% consistently, and over the Father's Day period that we have right now, it's been closer to 40%. So we have this massive group of gifters that we were sort of able to test what their interests are doing, because we now have that piece of data on the Klaviyo side, and we started testing into how they act differently for Father's Day to be able to implement for PFCM for gifters specifically. So one of the things we tested, our welcome pop-up that the team at Digioh was able to help us build, is a slot machine with different types of beer. It's very geared towards this male demographic we have. And so we tried to test during this run up to Father's Day, is a gifting audience that comes to our site now that's more women than normal, are they going to act differently towards a beer slot machine for a sign-up unit. And we found the beer slot machine actually does better than in just normal Father's Day messaging that we tried. And so this period for us right now has been really foundational this year, specifically to testing that gifting audience, because we have the backbones in place to do that. The other thing that we launched recently as part of this was a new preference center in Klaviyo. One of the options we now have is a pop-up in a form built in Digioh that allows you to opt out of holiday messaging. I have a friend who works in the brief space, and I've been building this with her for a long time. And we really want to make sure that customers aren't having a negative experience because they're grieving. And so we're now able to take them out of these holiday messaging. And the goal is for Q4, now that we've seen this group of people signing up to opt out of these messaging, we can do a couple of different things. One of those is update the site using Digioh's audience ID to give them a different Excite experience. We can take out a Father's Day gift card guide or a holiday gift guide and just put a generic link in the top, or change the header image so it is not speaking to the holiday. And so that is one piece. And the other thing that we're talking through is on the PostPilot side of sending those people a message with a discount that's similar, but a different discount code. And so then they can use the QR code. We can easily identify people coming through the QR code and give them that different site experience. So a lot of the stuff that we're doing right now is around this gifter specifically that plays right into Q4.
That's awesome.
Rishi.
So yeah, I'd love to dive in and kind of top Zach off here on Criquet. First of all, we have this thing internally, we call it the Zach playbook, because Zach really leverages our entire kind of suite, and the way he uses it makes us more innovative. So we like to sometimes say, hey, they should probably use everything that Zach is doing. So yeah, we put like a crawl, walk, run approach here for July, August, and September. And so if you look at July, you already have a ton of data in Klaviyo. Like there's so much data you already have in there, along with emails. And so what we can do with Digioh, with a snippet of JavaScript that you add to your site, we can actually we can target them based on your Klaviyo data. So one thing that Criquet does that's really different is if they know they're a VIP subscriber or they're a first-time buyer, we can show different banners. So maybe they're a first-time buyer, they're not in Klaviyo yet, we show like a discount offer, but they're already there, maybe we show a different type of offer because they're a VIP member. So leverage like the existing data that you already have in Klaviyo. So all your profile data, all your segment data, those now can become targetable attributes that you have in Klaviyo. So that's like the first thing I would start doing. If you already have a pretty big database in Klaviyo, you can already unlock that all across your site, which is immediately powerful. And then you can actually see the results on that in terms of revenue too with our platform. The second thing, the August, is capturing zero-party data. And so when I say zero-party data, what is that? That's like asking questions like, hey, are you buying, what Zach was saying was, are you buying for a family member? Are you buying for a dad? What is your age? Imagine if you had all that data going into September. If you knew their age, you could, and it's in Klaviyo, you could probably target them better with SMS messaging, with email messaging, trigger different things as well to them based on those data points. So it's things like surveys. We had a customer recently that does a 35% off offer, but they have to answer a ton of questions, and then he just imports that into Klaviyo to be able to target them better to get ready for September as well. So people are building like surveys, quizzes, also testing out those pop-ups. We've had people, they really don't want spin to win, but they know it just crushes it. Spin to win always, doubles your conversion rate with your pop-ups. And so trying those gamified pop-ups so that you can actually deploy those in September and just A/B test those as well. So that would be the August plan for that, capturing that data so you're ready for those email blasts, and then also testing the pop-ups so you can increase the conversion rate. And then September this is your time. You're gonna get a lot of new visitors to your site. So our idea is use our Digioh network to identify those visitors that we can then re-trigger your highest converting campaigns, which is usually abandoned browse, abandoned cart. So let's capture as much data. Let's get as many people in the funnel that we can. They're already opted into Klaviyo, so let's re-trigger those emails if we can, because they're coming back to your site after months of not being on your site. And yeah, I think those three things will allow a huge, massive Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and just making it all work together with Klaviyo and on your site. So this is a pretty cool strategy.
Gina, you're on mute. There you go.
You know, you would think 5 years, 6 years post-pandemic, we would all be good at the mute, unmute, but one day we'll learn. That was the perfect tee up. Thank you, Rishi. It's actually something that we talk a lot and think a lot about, where particularly as we talked about with acquisition, those rising CACs, there's just such a richness of opportunity in folks who already know your brand, who might have already purchased once or who haven't purchased. And we really want to think about, how do you drive so much of this, again, that like automation, and how do we allow AI to do more of that work with the existing zero-party data that we have. And that's really what July is for. We're making sure that, if you don't have abandonment flows, make sure you're building them. Things like, of course, cart abandonment, but we really find things like abandoned browse, abandoned favorites, abandoned checkout. Those are different messaging, right? Those are different places in the journey. It all comes back to continuing to think about, your buyer's a discrete person, right? And we want to make sure that we're meeting them. And again, some of that is that same friction we were talking about, where AI can help you solve the, hey, is there possibly an FAQ that we can get responded to in an abandoned cart flow that prompts, can I answer your questions about for Criquet, fit, material, activities? Like that can literally be a prompt at your bottom of your abandoned cart message. And then the AI, when the person says, oh yeah, this is a gift, do these shirts run true to size? Responds, yes. And also we often, is this a gift? And you get that data and writes it back. And by the way, this is instantaneous AI. Now's the time to build all of that. Again, it's going to keep coming up that like July and August are your time to do that testing and making sure that we're layering in that multi-channel, the omni-channel of it all, and actually meeting folks where they want to be. Some of that is also making sure that like, hey, are you connecting first-party data to your app networks? Are you actually your cart abandons? Are you following them around the internet? Right? We want to make sure you're getting that information for retargeting. Again, meeting your buyers wherever they are in their journey. And then again, September is really about looking at, hey, you just tested for 2 months, right? You could have 8 to 10 weeks of testing. What is actually working, and how can you start turbocharging that? Where do you do more? And then making sure, Zach, it's such a good point, and I love that we're on the same page. You also want to make sure you have suppression lists, right? We actually really want to be mindful about not blasting out to everyone and being really, really thoughtful about who shouldn't be on those lists and who are you building. Drew, over to you.
Nice. Well, I'll start with where you left off with Klaviyo. I think retargeting for direct mail is sort of your bread and butter. It should always be kind of running in the background. And a great example is something we call MailMatch, which is like everybody's got a big email list, and 1 or 2%, I don't know what the percent is, 5% of it is purchased before. And you've hit, there's always that group, I call them fence sitters, that are on your list. You've hit them with every offer in the book. They've gone through your welcome sequence and they never converted. And it's a great place for what we call email retargeting. So you could take that segment out of Klaviyo and sync it with PostPilot, and then send them a piece of direct mail. And you'll find that you will get conversions where email wasn't able to get a conversion. So that's a quick, simple campaign to set up. And then there's sort of the basics, like everybody touched on here, abandoned cart and welcome sequences, all these things where, you don't really have the customer's address yet, but the customer's shown some interest in purchasing. In Klaviyo, you could put, a trigger at the end, like you've built the Klaviyo flow that says, I want to send this person, 3 or 4 emails as my abandoned cart sequence, or my new customer welcome sequence. And then at the end, you say, if they haven't converted, I want to drop a postcard to them. And it's sort of a best practice because, if the customer converts through this lower cost channel of email, great. They don't get the postcard. And if they don't, then you send the postcard and you will see that will convert where email hasn't. So I think getting those sort of foundational things set up in July is a great way to automate some of your retargeting. And then in August, we have here, enhance that, add more signals into your retargeting program. Our integration with Digioh is a great example where you can retarget off a quiz. If this person or using some of the quiz data, maybe we want to put that into the direct mail, or if the person didn't convert off of the quiz or after the quiz, you can trigger a postcard with some of the same messaging. It's great use of Digioh. And then I would just ride that through the end of the year. Adding more signals into your retargeting program. And I would say retargeting almost always is a positive ROI for anybody who tries it. It's really the same as you'd find in other channels. You've got this intent, and it's just about feeding more intent into the algorithm. I know we are slightly behind, so I tried to move through that quickly, but are there any questions about retargeting? No questions about retargeting.
I just want to say, thank you for having me on here. We want to give everyone on this call a Criquet shirt. We're doing some free audits, so feel free to do that. And if you guys submit it, we'll love to get your size. And it's a great Father's Day gift. So just want to give a big shout out again to Criquet, and it's an amazing, amazing product and brand.
And we've got a case study on Criquet. As you mentioned, Zach is sort of, we have our Zach campaigns too. Every software brand has their Zach campaigns, but he's a great guy to follow. Just knows everything. So and really pushes the envelope for all of our apps. We have a question for Digioh.
So yeah, Serena, first of all, thank you for asking this question. Are Digioh's pop-ups different from Alia? Alia is a great pop-up solution. Where we're different is we go beyond pop-ups, and you can target pop-ups based on Klaviyo data. We can also trigger an exit. We also do quizzes as well. So it's full end-to-end funnel. But yeah, you could replace Alia with a Digioh pop-up if you wanted.
Let's move on to retention, but I want to thank those two guests from the last segment and welcome Natalie and Dove. Dove, who I've known for years. How you doing? And Natalie, nice to meet you. Thanks for joining. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Natalie, please, after you.
All right. Hi, I'm Natalie. I've been at Mizzen+Main for about, it'll be 5 years actually this month. Currently the SVP of marketing, but started off really just specific to the site side. So this is actually my 6th role at Mizzen in 5 years. So I've done a little bit of everything here, but currently really focused on, I would say, overall like GTM strategy. Retention is a really large objective for us this year. And I've absolutely loved, I would say, utilizing PostPilot and Klaviyo and OuterSignal together. I'm constantly, I feel like, trying to find new ways to create some kind of new meta field or tag or something using all 3 of these tools to target people. So super excited to talk today.
Awesome. I'm Dove. I'm the VP of CX at OuterSignal. This is actually my first foray onto the software side. I've spent my entire career in e-commerce, close to 15 years on the brand side. So I went from getting taken out to dinners to now paying the bill at dinners, which is quite a different side to be on and a different experience. But it's been quite amazing. If any of you have heard about us, it's been an amazing first year for OuterSignal, and PostPilot and Natalie on the Mizzen+Main side have been great partners of ours as well, of course with Klaviyo as well. So I'm excited. Retention for us is one of our main use cases of the many, but excited to be talking about how we can help you guys out as you approach Q4.
Well, thanks, guys. I got to say, Dove, it is fun on the software side, having done the transition too. Lifetime values are a lot higher. This kind of ties into what we're talking about. Which is I think the biggest thing I've noticed, and for those of you who know, I started a blog like in 2000, and harped. It's called nerd marketing. It's still there. I won't ask for a show of hands because I don't want to be embarrassed by the one person who's read it. But all I did was talk about lifetime value, and I'm like, there's two sides of this equation. There's like cost of acquisition and lifetime value, and everybody was always focused on hacking acquisition and hacking meta and funnels and all these things on the acquisition side. Meanwhile, retention's where you make your profits, because most brands are just break even on the first order, and if you're lucky, 10-20% come back and buy again, and that's when the cost of acquisition drops and you end up making more margin as a business. I'm still fighting that battle. I still think acquisition's a lot sexier, but retention's where you make your money. And these are just some of the challenges. Post-purchase flows usually run on default. Retention and winbacks are treated as an afterthought. Nobody does anything with VIPs, even though those tend to drive your business. So I think I'm going to enjoy kind of hearing what you guys have to say about retention. And Black Friday, I think, is no exception. I mean, the number of brands that just sort of come out of that holiday break even, it's getting a second purchase often after Black Friday, like in January, late December, and in January and February. That's when a lot of the money's made. So I guess with that, over to you, Natalie.
Cool. Could not agree more about the LTV piece of things. I feel like I'm preaching that ad nauseum right now internally, and I feel like everyone always just wants to talk about acquisition. So excited to be talking about some of the things that we've already kind of done and tested, and then some of the things we are currently working on testing that we've seen success with so far. And then also quick plug, I guess, for PostPilots. We're actually testing AcquisitionAI right now. So I think our mailer is going out this week. So fingers crossed that it goes well. But really in July, starting to just kind of double down, I would say, on the meta fields that OuterSignal is currently passing to Shopify about our customer base. So I remember when I had the first call with OuterSignal, and I was like, this is the coolest tool that I feel like I've come across in years. I mean, all this data about your customer is public facing, especially if they are, I would say, as prominent as our customer base is. And so to be able to just pull that and then put that into categorized meta fields on the profile has been huge for us. So we have most customers come into our business on dress shirts and pants, but we do offer so many other different categories of things. So we have a whole collegiate licensed product line. Military is a very important piece of our business, as our CEO is a veteran himself. And then I would say work is an extremely important facet of our customer's life. So they are very much bucketed into like very clear occupations that they live within. So we can utilize the data that OuterSignal is passing over to really target all these people. So I know where all my customers that are top customers went to school. I know if they have any military status or affiliation, and then I know what they do for work. So I can then, in Klaviyo and in PostPilot, I can target that specific message to every single one of these customer groups after they've already come in. So, we have NIL partnerships. We have 3 pretty big ones coming up at the end of July, beginning of August, that we're going to be launching. And so at that point, I can really make sure that, if we're partnering with someone from UT, as an example, then I'm not sending our partnership UT creative to people who went to OU. And vice versa, because that would obviously not go over so well. And then we've actually already tested some of the personalized creative copy to individuals based on what they do for work. So we have a large group of CEOs and executives. And so their creative said, comfort for the corner office. The audience was honestly like not even that large, but the ROAS on that campaign was shocking. I think it was like 150. These people spent like $100 more on average than my regular customer. So the cost of the campaign was tiny, but the conversion was huge. So really gearing up, I would say, in July to do some of that in August. Veterans Day is another huge holiday for us that we can capitalize on. We see another huge spike in May for Military Appreciation Month. So being able to find that community and target them with messaging from our CEO that, you know, resonates with them in a different way, I feel like is really building some of that brand loyalty that is hard to find, and you can't really buy that, which is great. And then all of these audiences that we're pushing into, I would say, PostPilot and Klaviyo for email and direct mail messaging, we're also pushing into Meta. So then that way, not only is our creative finding the right group of people, but we're also creating lookalike audiences based on all of these personas. That's huge. So then going into kind of September and Q4, really for like our fall campaign strategy, I would say taking some of these larger, really strong personas that OuterSignal has identified and handing those over to our PR agency so that we can also have them try and find people who are similar or have like characteristics. I think that's another great thing about OuterSignal is, you know, even though you may not have, you have a small group of people. Well, we have a large group now that we've had them for, I would say, about 2 years or so now. But even if you don't have these people in your customer base, you can still very much like cherry pick the traits of each of these personas that you want to try and go after, and then apply those to some of the other channels, or, you know, find other customers that maybe OuterSignal didn't necessarily recognize, but you can find other people who look like them based on just maybe one or two of those characteristics that have shown good promise. So that's exciting. And then also pushing the kind of VIP OuterSignal tags into Gorgeous so that our CX lead versus maybe some of our newer people to customer service, OuterSignal we're making sure is talking to someone who is like very, very well versed within the customer service space. And we know that when they're talking to them that they're getting kind of the best service possible. So those are kind of the ways that we are currently using all three of these.
Awesome. My turn, Drew?
Yes, Dove.
Want to jump in? Awesome. I mean, Natalie said, a lot of what I was going to say. She's a good advocate of the platform. It's been so great working together with her and her team on a lot of these different things. I think, just to piggyback on the framing that Drew, started the conversation with, retention is where the revenue is, right? And so, it makes all the sense in the world to double down on ensuring that your strategy and roadmap for how you deal with retention is dialed in and is as segmented as it possibly can be. And so what we do with a lot of brands at OuterSignal, is we provide this data layer that heretofore had not really been available to them. A lot of the ways that Natalie shared these attributes, these meta field that she's creating based off of different customer attributes like age, gender, birthday, month and year, job title, property value of the home they live in, where they went to school, all these different things really inform who the person is behind the order. And so once somebody buys from you already today, you're getting basic transactional information. You're not, if you're a little bit sophisticated, you've got an on-site quiz, a post-purchase survey, you're collecting zero and first-party data through assorted different ways like that. If you're a little fancier and perhaps have a bigger budget, you're going out to data warehouses and brokers and getting data that way. We're bringing you data, as Natalie said, from the public domain that is out there and available. And so what we then help you do is really create these segments and these personas of your customer base. I have a funny bit whenever I speak to folks about the platform. If anybody's, and this really harkens back to my time on the brand side, usually personas on the brand side, in my experience at least, and I have a bunch of experience on this side, are created in one of two ways. With apologies to anybody on the call who may be guilty of this. You have either a founder or senior leadership who feels very strongly that this is the customer and this is the persona. And I get it, right? Like they are the driving force behind the brand. They have the vision and they speak to a lot of folks. And so I'm not saying it's incorrect, but at best I would say it's incomplete. The other way is, you hire an agency and they put together some focus groups, some surveys. But again, at best we're talking about small, non-fully representative segments of the customer base. The magic of what OuterSignal does in creating these personas is that we're dealing with all your customers that you bring into OuterSignal. And so it's a much larger and representative sample set and size of your customer base. And so it's maybe not only accounting for the top few personas, but we're generating 6 to 8 personas for every brand. And that makes it really powerful so that you can get to these different pockets of the customer base that perhaps you didn't even know existed before. And so, preparing in July, whether it's, preparing July, August, September, I love that we're using this calendar because it is important to do this before Q4, but preparing to do this by identifying your personas, understanding who they are, and just getting them dialed in and getting the content created for them is really key early on. Once that's ready, right, then in August, you can basically go into your Klaviyo flows, your PostPilot campaigns, whatever you're doing that you want to do the segmentation by persona with, and you have the content ready to go. And this is the time to test. It's the time to iterate. It's the time to understand, which tagline, which copy is working, which image works. But the basic idea here is that we believe firmly that, a one-size-fits-all approach to targeting existing customers really just, for any customer, even for acquisition, but talking about retention here, it's just not the way. And so if you have this data that OuterSignal is arming you with that is enabling you and unlocking the ability to speak to folks in a way that's going to resonate most, that is the way forward. So spend August basically doing that iteration, doing that testing, getting rid of these default one-size-fits-all templates, and replacing them in different flows and different journeys that you have within those channels with more persona-specific types of content. And then once September comes, right, like you're basically completing that process, getting everything dialed in. This is the time. Oftentimes, again, harkening back to my time on the brand side, right? Like after October 1, nobody wants to let anybody touch anything, change anything, right? It's a full-on code freeze. Nobody wants to screw anything up, and so. Finish September, getting those things dialed in, and I'm focusing specifically on personas, but to Natalie's point earlier, there's so much data that we bring you beyond just transactional stuff that you already have around who could be a VIP for a host of different reasons. And so dialing in these different segments, understanding who they are, understanding how you want to message to them, how you want to speak to them to get impact and to get the action that you're going for. Is key during this period, so that when Q4 comes, everything is locked and loaded, and you're positioned to succeed and have the best Q4 you've ever had. That's it.
The best Q4 you've ever had is I don't know how I'm supposed to follow that. I can't promise. Of course, no one's gonna hold me to it. I'll promise it too. Best Q4 you'll ever had if you do these things. In all seriousness, you'll see that for those of you who've been on for the whole time, you'll see these start to repeat and build, and it really does come down to the fact that, as everyone has mentioned, a lot of that data lives in Klaviyo, and you really see Klaviyo as your CRM, right, for running that business. And so you'll see that Customer Hub, right, coming up again and thinking about how are you personalizing your on-site experiences in a drawer to actually target, right, again, that example of your VIPs, how are they actually seeing something different, right? Maybe using their loyalty points versus someone who's been only a one-time purchaser and maybe a discount purchaser, right? Making sure that you're actually building that out. And then in August, again, it is about testing and about activating things like personalized send time and checking, hey, who are my at-risk segments? Who are the folks who maybe haven't purchased in longer than the rest of my database? How do I start warming them up? Because again, as Drew said, right, that's where a lot of the profitability lies, making sure you're reactivating those folks and then really making sure that you are scaling up what's been working. And then again, making sure that AI is supporting you. I think I've had you start using Customer Agent in each one of these months, the point being that make sure that you are having AI help you have those really personalized conversations with brands and reinforce that with the flows, with the messaging, with the touch points like direct mail that are really working to re-engage that audience before Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Like, we'd love nothing more, right? You drive a purchase in August, October, November, and then again in January, and really get that virtuous cycle going.
Awesome. I think you can, I'm going to, my number one tip to have like the best Q4 ever is probably to build your business around the VIPs that you already have. I think I did some work for Bonobos like 15 years ago, and it was, you'd have these 20% of any of your customers at one point drive like 80% of the revenue. And they had men coming in, they bought a swimsuit on their first purchase, and then half of them would return it, and their, LTV was like $30. And then they had another group of men who would come in and buy a suit first and at, X $1,000 and go on to spend, $15,000 with them. And so that was like really eye-opening that they have like whales and minnows. They're different customers and they behave differently. And so you take that knowledge of like transaction spend and recency and frequency and monetary spend, and then you layer on like the OuterSignal stuff. He's like, well, what makes a whale different from a minnow? Oh, they all go to this, they go to the same school. They have a certain income. Like maybe we should put a store here. Like that's the kind of thinking you do. How does all that translate to direct mail? I think you probably want to roll out a VIP campaign would be a great one to start with. I mean, we acquired this company that did handwritten notes a while back because I saw Chewy doing it. And there's some hard data that shows that customers that receive a human touch go on to spend more with your brand. So a human touch in the form of a thank you note. So one idea would just be like, okay, we're going to set a spend level of $1,000, customers that spend X dollars with us get the handwritten note. Their lifetime value is going to be higher than those that don't. Like that's a good thing to kind of play around with in July. Another thing I like to do is a recency test. So, most of our buyers for any of the brands on this call, most of your buyers are one and done. That's like 80% of your buyers. So I would imagine them strung out by recency of purchase. So you have a one-time buyer that just bought yesterday. You also have a one-time buyer who you might consider churned who last bought like 2 years ago. And what you can do is drop the same direct mail campaign to all of them. And by the way, most of them have unsubscribed from email, especially the one 2 years ago. So you could send a campaign to all, to a segment of each of those going back 2, 3, 4 years. And you're going to see like the ones who most recently purchased last month are going to have a great ROI. They're engaged. The ones that most recently purchased, 5 years ago are probably not going to be profitable. But at some point between those two, you're going to have a point where they're no longer profitable to market to, right? It's a very quick recency test. You don't have to send it to all your one-time buyers. You can choose a segment, but it's going to tell you like how far back in your customer file you can go with a campaign. And then what do you do in August? You automate that. You say like, okay, I know it's profitable for me to go back with my win-back offer to anyone who bought from me 2 years ago. So we're just going to do that on a rolling basis and have that running as a win-back. So that's what I would automate in August. And then, to bring OuterSignal into this, like the more you sort of populate that data with the other qualities of a customer beyond recency and frequency of purchase, like it's just going to give you more color that you can add on top of your campaigns, like the military one that Natalie brought up, you'll see the conversion rates go up as you do that in the relevance. So that's probably what I would do on the retention side. Are there any questions about retention? I think that's it. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks, Natalie, and thanks, Dove, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And now we are going to keep things rolling and move into our agency panel. So we've got Emily from Tenuity and Alika. Am I saying that right? From
Yeah,
Grow.
that's it.
Okay. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I will kick it off. I am Emily Clarkson from Tenuity. For those of you that don't know Tenuity, we are the largest independent full funnel digital marketing agency in the US. That's a mouthful. And I head up the email and SMS side. So being full funnel, we're often working with brands across multiple channels. So I'm kind of more on the retention side. Like a lot of other people here, I started my career on the brand side. Then I moved to a retention or lifecycle only startup. And now I'm at a multi-channel digital agency, Tenuity. I'll pass it over.
Cool. And I'm Alika Kirker. I'm the Senior Director of Business Development and Partnerships at Grow. Just a little bit of background on Grow. We do all things performance marketing and creative, but I think what's interesting about us is that we actually started as an SEO agency, and now we've been focusing a lot on AI search. I've been in the agency world for, I don't know, oh my God, like almost 8 to 10 years at this point. So that's kind of where my background lies.
Awesome. We've got Graham too. Graham from Pixel Theory.
Yeah. Hey, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Pixel Theory. We're positioned more as a growth partner for consumer brands. So we end up doing a lot of financial modeling work and tying that back into growth strategy and performance marketing for the brands we work with.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. I think you're all in a position where you see, you see thousands of brands going through Black Friday, through the rest of the year, doing omnichannel. And I guess this is the question. This is kind of like, what do you see? What are some best practice you see working across all your clients?
Yeah, so I can kick us off from the Tenuity side. From an acquisition standpoint, being a multi-channel full funnel agency, we are really using our own data, so our zero and first party data, for targeting across media channels. We're helping to bridge that gap of that audience strategy for targeting in larger acquisition capacities. So in social and search, TVAD, for example, we're really looking at who should we be targeting at these levels, knowing what we know we can retain from a consumer perspective. We talked about this earlier. CAC is rising. Let's not just acquire anybody. Let's be thoughtful about who we're acquiring based upon who we know we can retain. That's an acquisition standpoint. Do you want me to go through all three of them, Drew? All right, cool.
Yes, sorry. That'd be great.
No worries. No worries. From a retargeting standpoint, I think for our clients, what we're seeing is it's really coming down to that sophisticated segmentation. Again, we've got the great data. How can we segment and target people in a sophisticated way in our lifecycle channels? So whether that's a win-back or abandon, or even utilizing it in direct mail, even across media channels to retarget there. All for the purpose of hyper-personalization and meeting individuals where they are on their unique customer journey. Ultimately, we're doing this by making segmentation more sophisticated based upon what we know, and tailoring the messages directly to them. I think a lot of speakers today have talked at length about this and utilizing the different tools. From a retention standpoint, in a similar vein, really focusing on audience strategy and identification. So this really comes down to understanding who your audiences are, identifying where subscribers are, of course, in that journey, but looking at those folks that we consider VIPs and even those folks just below VIPs in order to determine how do we get that group bigger, how do we move them up to truly a VIP? We can do this a lot of different ways, and we work with a lot of different tools. I think Dove spoke to this not too long ago, really, really well, utilizing tools and AI and platform to just understand these groups better, because once we can understand who these cohorts are using the real data that we have, so not just high-level demographics and personas, we're able to meet customers where they are and keep them coming back to create that overall brand loyalty.
Cool. And on my side, really where we've been seeing a lot of success is actually through AI search. And as we all know, the search landscape has shifted quite a lot over the past year or so, and more people are starting their search on ChatGPT and these other LLMs. So it's really started to become a really great discovery channel for a lot of our clients, just because a lot of consumers are finding brands for the first time during these searches. I think what's also interesting is that we just saw this kind of data come out by Reuters around basically consumers who are landing on your site through LLMs are converting at a 54% higher rate than traditional shoppers. So I think that just kind of shows how high intent these types of customers are. So really what we're helping our clients is just basically optimizing their searches. So making sure the site is able to be crawled by the LLMs, ensuring they have proper content and then citations, just to help them, again, be discovered in AI search, which then in turn is allowing them to acquire more customers through this channel as well. And on the retargeting side, as we, again, maybe all know, SEO and AI search, they are very much a top of funnel channel. So the more times that we can get consumers to find and not only find, but also just read your blog content that's on the site in that discovery phase. And then the more times that we can get AI to cite your brand, whether that's in AI overview or in ChatGPT results, that's just going to lead, again, more people to the site. So that's actually going to be really beneficial for your paid teams, just because you're starting to fill up those buckets within retargeting just ahead of Q4. So just making sure that as you're driving more people to the site, making sure you kind of have that pop up to capture all of that data, maybe having an identity resolution tool just to, again, try and identify any user that's going to the site. And again, just it's going to continue to help you fill up those buckets just ahead of Q4. And then when they're presented with those Q4 offers, they have a better chance of converting there as well. On the retention side, I feel like this is kind of what ties everything together. We're, of course, through AI search, just driving high intent visitors and just building really high quality retargeting audiences. A lot of those purchases might not be happening right away because someone's maybe discovering your brand through ChatGPT in July. Maybe they get retargeted and then maybe they're buying in October. So that sale just kind of looks unattributed, but it actually started with that content that they maybe saw in Q3. So I think that that's really why kind of personalized communication matters, because we already know what they're looking for just based off of their behavior on the website. So we just want to make sure that that messaging is just cohesive just across that entire buying journey.
Awesome. I'll run through mine now. On the acquisition side, thesis-driven creative testing. So there's obviously been a big narrative around needing creative volume for paid acquisition. We audit a lot of businesses that have checked the box on sheer volume, but don't necessarily have thesis behind what they're testing. So that's been a big unlock for the brands we're working with. So implementing proper creative testing systems, naming conventions, and putting together the personas that we've already talked about earlier in this presentation. That has been big on acquisition. For retargeting, similar to both of your guys' points, personalization is big there. So getting people into these funnels, making it feel like it's really tailored for them, that's just driving stronger and stronger customer acquisition for these brands. On the retention side, we're mainly focused on growth, so net new customer acquisition. And we're always tagging these cohorts, watching how they mature, and then modeling out what they look like for the business over time. So good retention for the brands we work with starts with the type of customers that we're acquiring at the beginning. And I think that that's a good shift for people as well. So we see agencies or internal teams acquiring customers who are big one-time purchasers, and that's not scalable for a lot of these businesses, and they haven't dug into the analytics of knowing who they should actually be acquiring. So retention gets easier when you're getting the right people in from the start.
Awesome. And I think we'd like to do a lightning round with you guys. I hope you're prepared for this. But I think all the brands would love to know what's the highest ROI tests right now. I guess if you were to recommend one campaign to run this summer, what would it be? I guess we'll start. Yeah, Tenuity, Emily.
Awesome. Thanks. I think that SMS testing is not done enough and is a high impact ROI test during the summer. And the reason is, I think we all know how important SMS is in general, but when we're having big sales and there's a sense of urgency, we can really play around with the timing and the number of sends that we are going to be doing. We know that a lot of people are converting on their phones. SMS is helping to drive that. So testing during the summer, playing around with it for the sales that are occurring in this time period ahead of the holiday. That way we can understand what the threshold is, how much is too much for people and how much is just enough for them to be converting from some of those extra sends.
Is it like recency of the initial SMS also matter?
Meaning,
like how soon you send, when do you determine that a cart's been abandoned and send that initial SMS?
Exactly. I think for holiday and big sales, we want to tighten all of our abandoned timings anyways, because it's a limited time period and SMS will fluctuate too. And so it's timing and cadence during the period.
Awesome. Alika.
Yeah. On our side, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more around the specific content that we're testing, specifically for AI search. And it's kind of interesting because it really depends on the vertical. But we're starting to do a lot of testing between like short form and even kind of like longer form, more traditional SEO blog style content. And when we're thinking about kind of some of that short form content, it's a little bit more Q&A style. And the reason why we're recommending that for AI search is just because what are people doing on ChatGPT? They're asking it very simple questions and wanting an answer in return. So we want to make sure that we literally have all of that content living on our brand's website. So that's oftentimes kind of what we're building out. But then kind of on the flip side, which is interesting, is like a lot of our more traditional SEO blog content that we've been writing for our clients throughout the years is actually being cited in Google AI Overview. So that's kind of why we're starting to do that twofold test between short and long form and just making sure that we have our bases covered there. And then kind of tying into this a little bit to an extent on the AI search side is we're starting to do some tests with ChatGPT ads. Obviously, it's in very, very early infancy stages. The platform has a long way to go, but they are rolling out features like on a weekly basis. So what we're doing is just taking a lot of those learnings in terms of what prompts our clients are having visibility for and maybe which ones they maybe want visibility for and kind of using that within our targeting there, just so we can kind of start to get a leg up. Because as we know, like ChatGPT and all these LLMs, it's just the traffic's continuing to grow exponentially. So just kind of like starting to do a lot of that early testing now just to prepare us just ahead of Q4 for that.
Do you see any one of them driving more purchases than another one, like Claude, Perplexity?
Yeah, ChatGPT is actually still the biggest one at this point. I don't know, I feel like for me personally, I use like Claude a lot on like more of a day-to-day for like my work purposes, but maybe ChatGPT kind of for like my travel planning and things like that. So it's kind of interesting, I think, the way that we flip-flop between the two, but ChatGPT is still like the largest one that we're seeing right now.
Consumer.
Yeah.
Cool. How about Graham?
Yeah, for us, we're doing a lot of offer testing during the summer. So one of our better case studies is a brand who came in spending, call it $200,000 a month. We then tested about 50 different offers with them over a 6-month window, which allowed for us to have very high conviction in which offer to scale into. So I think summer's a great time for brands to do that so that they're entering Q4 knowing what they should be driving their marketing ad spend into. So that's pairing up offers on the creative side for pre-click, so anything that's getting pushed out on paid channels, and then on the landing page side as well. So putting people into different subscription options or different funnels. And again, just watching how these cohorts mature over time and understanding what the high LTV bucket is that you want to go out and acquire in Q4. So that's what we're spending a lot of our time on this summer with brands.
Awesome testing. How about on the flip side? Where do you see brands wasting Q3, and I guess how does that bite them in Q4? Emily.
Yeah, I think I need to stay on the topic of testing here because I think that there's just not enough testing being done leading into the holiday. I'm always encouraging brands to think ahead as they're doing their holiday planning and think about what kinds of shifts and tweaks they're going to either make to existing flows, timing, cadences, kind of like we were talking before. Do all of that stuff now. So if you think you're going to do it at the holiday, now is the time to see if your hypothesis of how things will be is right. And there are a lot of great sales during this period to test some of that stuff on. Obviously, the stakes are a lot higher in Q4. So that coupled with, I'm throwing two out here, but just collecting data for Q4. We've talked a ton about data today, but now's the time to do that. And really any time before a big sale, collecting what we know, collecting information from folks on, even if it's just like who they're shopping for, what they're shopping for. So we have that and we can target more sophisticatedly in Q4. So it's that real-time responsiveness and that real data that we have on folks that people are expecting from brands today.
Cool. Yeah. And on my side, it's really just kind of waiting until Q4 and being like, oh, I want AI visibility in Q4. Like that's never going to happen unless you do a lot of the work right now, just because SEO, it's always just more of a long-term channel. It can take up to 4 to 6 months. AI search is the exact same way. So really just kind of starting to think about and checking your AI visibility and seeing if you're showing up for some of the prompts that are maybe high intent for you, or maybe they're gifting focused or things like that, that again are relevant to your brand. Again, the reason why it usually takes so long is kind of think about it. Once the content's written, then then Google and these LLMs have to start to pick it up, and it just doesn't happen overnight. So you really need to start to do a lot of the heavy lifting now, just to make sure you're laying that groundwork, just so you have a chance in Q4. So yeah, that's where we're kind of seeing it on our side.
How about you, Graham?
Yeah, on our end, I mean, AI's made it easier than ever to put out sheer volume of ad creatives. And I think you have people who are feeling like they're doing the work of launching and testing tons of ad assets. But if you don't actually have the right system in place to measure those learnings, you're doing a lot of busy work, you're spending a lot of ad dollars, and you're going to come out of it without conclusive answers on what's working and what's not. So definitely have been seeing a trend there where people on Twitter or LinkedIn are just talking about, getting lead magnets to pump out as much content as possible. But without the right system in place, you're going to end up wasting a lot of money and time and enter Q4 not knowing what, again, you should be scaling into. And that's the most competitive time to be testing. So that's where we're seeing people waste in Q3.
Great. Well, thank you, agency panelists, Graham, Alika, and Emily. Really appreciate you coming on board and sharing those insights.
Of course.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
And that leaves me and you, Gina.
It does. I have to say that there's like a few key themes that felt like they were coming up, and thank you guys to all the panelists, but I feel like the agency folks really summed it up, and I had some really good advice probably a little over a year ago, which was, just start playing around with AI and start testing it. And this feels like a microcosm or maybe a macrocosm of that. We're like, the most important thing you can do right now, we talked about so much and so many different tactics. And just the most important thing, if you take nothing away, is like, there's nothing too small, right? Actually, now is the time to really start iterating and testing and not really wing it. When it comes to October, November, I feel like everyone's talking about how BFCM keeps getting longer and longer, and really it feels so far away right now, but now is the time to be testing and figuring out what you can be doing so that you can really drive those returns and growth.
It's the agency panelists literally like begging everybody to test now and not go to them, November 1st asking for magic. And I think we fall into that category too. Don't come to me asking for a catalog, a week before Thanksgiving. It's not going to happen. But yeah, test the brands that are winning, test early. They're professionals about this. The ones that don't do as well probably get around to it in November, and the difference in the returns. So that sort of came through in all sections of today's webinar. So hope everybody enjoyed. I want to thank all our partners: Klaviyo, Brij, Digioh, Grow, Pixel Theory, Tenuity, OuterSignal, Mizzen+Main, Criquet, Tushy, and Health-Ade. Really appreciate you guys coming on board, especially the brands. I know everybody's super busy, but hopefully you all got some good knowledge out of this. Gina, thanks for doing this with me.
My pleasure. Always fun. Happy to co-host again.
Thanks. All right, everybody, take care and good luck.